Hello and welcome to another episode of Travel Market Life. I'm your host, Ryan Haynes, and we have been exploring all areas of the travel industry over the last few months. And this is ongoing as we start to reopen. But as we start to reopen, we have seen there are great risks of having to close again. I've been spending a couple of months in Spain, and even in this locality, we've seen small towns and villages having to close. We've also seen quarantine measures be reimposed on Spanish and British tourists returning from Spain. But we've also seen local lockdowns happening across the UK. And what impact is this having on businesses, and how are businesses preparing for potential closures? Well, we're going to be speaking to a safety and health practitioner today as we look at quality assurance in maintaining COVID-19 hygiene standards, a look at the risks to come and preparing risk management, supporting teams and bringing cultural change, getting assistance and advice with dealing hygiene standards and safety. And we'll also be giving you the common findings from health and safety inspectors. To help me with this, because I'm certainly no specialist, I have Nina Fairweather, who is a chartered safety and health practitioner from Fairweather Safety Consulting. Hi, Nina. How are things going for yourself north of the border in Scotland?
Hi, Ryan. I'm fine, thank you. Yes, we're in sunny Dundee, north of the border.
Excellent.
I'm great.
Wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. And I mean, you've been having to rummage through lots of information, criteria, expectations, a lot of information that's been going on around the health and safety standards, particularly for COVID-19. And one of the things that you're going to help us with today is actually a checklist for ensuring there are some of these standards in place. How has been the process for you trying to understand and guide and support businesses with COVID-19 standards since we've had to address these?
Thanks, Ryan. Yes, I mean, since the beginning of lockdown, I've been keeping on top of what the changes are being, either through webinars or through obviously looking at government guidance. We've got devolved governments in the United Kingdom, so we've got to look at 4 different types of guidance, and they're all set out differently, so it can be very complicated for businesses trying to figure out what needs to be done. But I mean, it's all about having a risk assessment of your business, and from there defining it through a checklist to make sure that you've got on top of things.
Yeah, I mean, trying to come up with a checklist, though, surely for someone who really doesn't fully understand some of the risks associated or the sort of in the industry itself. So what are some of the key things that businesses should be considering on a day-to-day basis?
So, I mean, the first thing obviously is exposure. So the risk of exposure to COVID-19. So how you're actually going to stop that happening. So a lot of that's through physical distancing, which in different countries is variable. And even in this country, it's 2 meters is a recommendation, but you can have 1 meter with mitigating measures. So it's about making sure that you've got the physical distancing, thinking about the capacity of the building, how the staff and customers are going to be social distance and queue management and adapting services related to that. It's also about face coverings. So again, the legislation keeps changing. Sometimes it's a recommendation and then it's mandatory. But face coverings, it's changing to the fact that it needs to be, even if you're walking around a hotel corridor, that you need to be wearing face coverings to protect others from you. The other things to think about now are the track and trace. So making sure that you're actually recording the details of people when they come in, so that if there is a case of COVID, that you can actually track back and help the government to manage the track and trace process. And how do you do that? How do you manage the GDPR aspect of that and retaining people's details? So that's some of the considerations to take. There's also obviously hand hygiene. So making sure that you've got adequate water and soap for people to wash their hands. And if not that, then hand gel sanitizer. But also thinking about how you can remove that hand contact issue in relation to hygiene. So, can you remove the magazines? Can you remove the payment system? So can you do contactless payment reduce that hand contact issue. Toilets are always a hot subject, and you can keep doors open so that you can kind of avoid that social distancing issue. And toilets are about washing your hands afterwards. It's not about using hand gel sanitizer. Enhanced cleaning is another consideration, and it's a buzzword at the moment. There's two different aspects to cleaning. Cleaning is about removing dirt, and disinfection is about actually killing the viruses. So it's about understanding what you need to clean and disinfect and when. And enhancement means increased cleaning. But there's also other measures that need to be taken, like communications, regular communications with staff and customers. Additional considerations about home working. If someone's working from home on a regular basis, have you thought about the workstation and how it's been set up? Or are you going to have ergonomic issues with them later on? It's about thinking about pairing. So you've kind of got a team. So team A works together, team B works together. So you haven't got a mixture of people, staggering shifts. And I strongly recommend that you've got a COVID safe, responsible person, at least one, if not one per shift, that helps to manage this process. So that's the kind of COVID-19 standards, but there's more than air quality, which probably does go into the COVID-19 side of it. But there's Legionella issues. If you're closing off sinks because you're not going to use it because you want to increase social distancing, then is that sink going to be flushed on a regular basis? If a lot of showers are not being used at the moment, so are they being flushed to make sure you haven't got stagnant water and the risk of the proliferation of Legionella bacteria? There's fire safety issues. Sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that, I hadn't even thought about that, Legionellas. And as we know that some rooms are being left open, left empty for a couple of days, sometimes in the turnaround. We also are aware that city centre hotels mainly are seeing incredibly low occupancy levels right now, and they might only be using 1 or 2 floors rather than the entire building. So as you say, that is a huge risk there. And then what's this regarding fire safety?
Well, your fire risk assessment might need to be updated because you might have added flammable storage in relation to hand gel sanitizer. I've been doing a risk assessment for a local community sports centre, and they bought a 25-litre container of hand gel sanitizer, which is flammable.
Do they want to?
Yeah.
They want to open a swimming pool.
Yeah,
that's incredible, and that is flammable stuff, isn't it? So that needs to be kept somewhere really secure. And I guess even if you have, 100 bottles of 100 milliliter sanitizer, that's still a risk to a business.
Yeah, they need to consider how they're storing any flammable substances should be stored into a metal container. So obviously with the 25-litre container of hand gel sanitizer, it's going to go somewhere more significant than small bottles of sanitizer. But yeah, it needs to be part of your consideration. And also we're removing tables and chairs, aren't we, to increase the distance between people, social distancing. Where are those tables and chairs going? Are you obstructing exits? Because you shouldn't be.
Yeah, and I guess as well, it's when the alarm goes off, where do people go? We've all been used to congregating in one small space, but you're going to have to consider maybe splitting people off into different areas so they have the social distancing when there is the alarm, even if it's just a test alarm. Yeah. And I guess going back to some of the earlier things that you mentioned, which may seem sort of like day to day to us now, but things like you go into the bathroom to have the toilet, you come out again. Well, as you say, you got to push the door. So do you have sanitizer on the door before you go in? Actually having and selling face masks and making those available to the general public. I mean, that's so easy to lose a face mask, especially if you have one of those sort of more hospital style blue ones. They break very easily. So actually having some of those on site for both staff and guests will be absolutely essential if you're inviting the public in. So there's some
free,
of these different
free marketing.
Yeah,
free marketing if you brand it.
Absolutely, and that'll be something that you'll be keeping for some time, that's for sure. Any other sort of things on a checklist that you would say to people don't forget about when you're dealing with COVID-19?
Well, again, from a safety point of view, if you're bringing in new chemicals, then that needs to be part of your chemical assessment. First aid, are the first aiders still wanting to be first aiding? Have you considered what the guidance is on first aid, and has that been communicated to the first aiders? Manual handling, if the job is with two people, how are you going to do that? Which you can still do it, but how are you going to do it with mitigation measures in place? To ensure that you're not going to spread the virus. And then there's always security, because so many people are leaving doors open now. Fire doors shouldn't be left open, but other doors are being left open for increased ventilation. Is that a security risk of someone coming in the back door and stealing something? But we've still got terrorism. So terrorism still.
Oh, absolutely. And we saw that case happen just during lockdown as well. We've seen a number of cases around terrorism. And I guess what you're saying here is that whilst you are trying to manage hygiene levels for COVID-19, it's not about neglecting the other areas of the business, the other rules, the regulations, the standards around health, safety, fire, terrorism, all those that we've had to deal with over the last 10 or 15 years. They're still very much present, and that right. They need to be addressed.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the other thing is that you can list all well and good, but it's about making sure that you meet those standards. You have some sort of performance indicators. What sort of ways can you do that? Because you have external auditors. You have people who come in who might just show up on your door and want to have a look around. What sort of processes could a business be putting into place to ensure that all the standards for health and safety are being met by the business?
Well, many businesses now are using accreditation stamps. So there's different organizations that will verify to say that you're COVID secure. That in the main is not through physical auditing, which it may have been in the past. It's through answering a set of questions and showing that you've done your risk assessment, you've got your policies and procedures and your training. A good one is Visit Britain. Visit Britain website has some fantastic guidance for anything related to travel and tourism. And there's a guidance specific to those areas. And then you go in and you answer a set of questions to say that you're doing something. And then at the end of it, you'll get a good to go stamp that you can display on your front door. You can display that with your COVID secure statement that the HSE have put together to say that you've done a risk assessment and hand washing. So there's that side of it. But to me, that's just a kind of stamp to say that you've got the administration in control. It doesn't say that you've actually got the management of it. And it's all about visually seeing. So it's about the managers standing back and watching and saying, yeah, okay, fine, we're doing this, but we could do this better. Any audit is a snapshot in time. And having an external person like myself coming in to do the audit is great. But the management team has, and all the staff need to play a role in saying, actually, we're not doing that as well as we could do. We should do this better. So quality assurance is great. As I said, there's many different accreditations out there. I would go with the good to go for now in travel and tourism, because it answers everything. But it's all about, is it actually taking place? So your own internal kind of auditing and inspections.
Yeah, so it's about having that regular auditing, even if it's on a daily basis. It's about being aware as well that your guests will be auditing you, that actually if you put a step out of line, it could be a massive damage to your reputation, especially with online review sites. People want to know what is the status of the health and safety and cleanliness of any of the buildings that they're visiting right now, especially those who are particularly sensitive and worried about COVID-19, perhaps more vulnerable people. So as you say, if you're going to have quality insurance, it's got to live and breathe throughout the building and throughout the people and your staff, not just on a piece of paper that you have you've checked the boxes that they asked you at that one particular time before you reopened.
Yeah, and I think if I was a business owner, I would be asking friends to come in and do a spot check and just tell me what they think and what's actually happening. I think on the reverse of that, there's also the danger of people actually bad mouthing a business. There was something in the paper the other day about a business. It was in Dundee. About two bars that somebody had said that there was staff that had COVID-19 that were working in the bar, which was a complete untruth. But all of a sudden, the business has gone dead because everyone's now scared that there's there's contagion within the property, which is obviously a lie. So there's two sides to social media and how it can be managed. But definitely, customers are writing to say that things are going well or could be done better.
Yeah, I mean, this is also about this cultural change to staff, about bringing different processes and approach. And how do you achieve that with a team that perhaps have been at a business for a long time, or perhaps whereby you have staff that are, temporary, they come and go? How do you ensure that you can bring that cultural change and get everyone involved in these new standards?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be about communication on a regular basis. I was talking to a hotelier in Amsterdam recently. They were operating. It was back in May, and he said that they'd only been closed a few weeks, really, so maybe 8 weeks. And he said that the staff had to be completely retrained on everything. They'd forgotten everything from customer service to fire safety to how to clean to how to do this, and they had to be completely retrained. So it's amazing how quickly we forget something. So as with everything, it's about behavioral change, and behavioral change has to happen through coaching and through talking and through. It's not about a classroom sitting somebody down and saying, or online training as the case now. It's not about that. It's about how to deliver a message in different ways all the time that you can get things through. It's also about going back to visual inspections. Is in some ways it's about, at the beginning, about policing. It's about kind of standing there and watching and making sure that things are happening, and then picking up and saying, no, you didn't do that right, we need to do this slightly differently, in a nice way. But it really is about having those COVID responsible people by shift that understand what the standard is for enhanced cleaning and can go up to people and say, you didn't do this quite right, this is how you should do it.
I guess it's a bit like GDPR. We got someone who's responsible for looking and processing the data within a business, and it's important to have someone who's also responsible for COVID-19 standards on every shift, and making sure that those practices are put into place. But one of the other things, is big, and we did mention this at the very beginning, is this risk of reclosure. And this is part of a wider risk management program. How are you preparing and planning for local lockdowns? And something that's actually happened here in Spain, in a town that I'm staying in called Mazaron, they almost did a local lockdown until they found the source of the COVID-19, which was then put down to 2 particular bars, which were then closed. So there is risk that the local council could either close you or the entire local area. So how do you manage that risk?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's about keeping on top of your environment and knowing where the spikes are. And look at Aberdeen. Aberdeen's just closed down because of bar spreading. There was article of, I'm not sure where it was. It's a town in England where they've actually got together, and all of the bars in the town have said, we're not going to permit pub crawling. So the rule in a town is it's 1 bar, 1 day. So you can only go to 1 bar on 1 day, and then it removes the risk of spreading through pub crawling, which is, it's part of your assessment, isn't it? It's thinking about, it's thinking about what you need to do at your property to prevent exposure, but what can you do within the local community as well to provide that kind of environmental assurance that it's not going to be spread throughout the community.
Yeah, no, and I guess, if you're working closely with the local business community as well, you can all work together to try to make sure that you can bring the safety standards to the local area to prevent that lockdown. And I guess the more you work together, the more voices, the stronger you are. And I mean, there's been a lot of that. I mean, especially with the way that business associations have been working now and trying to collaborate and work together in order to give clarity to the industry. Where would you advise businesses to get assistance when it comes to maintaining standards and developing standards for COVID-19, and which standards in particular to follow?
Well, I mentioned the Visit Britain website, and as I said, it's got links to all the guidance relative to the kind of activity that you've got. So it might be sailing, or it might be whitewater rafting, or whatever it is. There's a guidance to there. But the UK Hospitality Association has done a fantastic job right from the very beginning of lockdown. As has the CIH, the Chartered Institute of Environmental Health, and they've all worked together in terms of looking at kind of environmental health, food safety, health and safety, the requirements for the hospitality industry in terms of social distancing, etc. And they've been fundamental in terms of getting the government to agree on what hospitality needs to do. The other very helpful association at the moment is the UK Housekeeping Association. They've got a fantastic toolkit for enhanced cleaning and what needs to be considered. There's lots of different training organizations out there that are providing free training. I'm currently writing a training for enhanced training with enhanced cleaning with Tipsy, which is a hospitality training company. But there's also HITS training. The HSE's got great guidance. And of course, you've got your own health and safety consultant that you can reach out to, like me.
Excellent. Wonderful. Good plug there, Nina. Thank you very much. That's Nina Fairweather, Safety Consulting. Okay, thank you. And so what about the future? What risks are there for us to consider just moving forward? I mean, we discussed reclosure, but what else needs to be thought of?
I think I mentioned terrorism. I think we've got to keep terrorism on the forefront of our minds. It was there, and it's kind of been forgotten at the moment. And cybersecurity is a big one as well. Your business continuity plans need to be reviewed and kept up to date. You know, a crisis is the fact that something's never happened before, and that's why it's a crisis. An emergency is something that, you know, it's happened and we know what to do. We know the plans and everything else. But a crisis is about planning in case something happens. And you know, there's always been these kind of plans for pandemics. It's just no one thought that there would be this complete lockdown of the whole world, even though it was thought about, but no one thought it was actually going to happen. So there's that side of it. But you've also, as a business, you've got to think about the fact that the environmental health officers from the councils are coming out to do inspections, and there's 4 common findings that they're finding at the moment when they're coming to do the inspections. Is you're failing to provide arrangements for monitoring, so that you're not monitoring what you say you're doing, not supervising and maintaining social distancing, so your risk assessment says you're going to do X, Y, Z, but you're not actually supervising and monitoring. Failing to introduce adequate cleaning regimes, particularly at busiest times of day. So you got your cleaning schedule, but you're not actually thinking about when the busiest time of day is and the hand contact services and making sure it's actually happening. And failing to provide access to welfare facilities to allow employees to frequently wash their hands with soap and water.
Wow.
And I think you need to think about that, the fact that if there is a lockdown and they find out that your business has been contributory to the spread of the virus, then there's going to be ramifications.
Oh, they're 4 basic things. They're the 4 basic things that's of social distancing under the alert message that we got at the beginning. That's incredible. They're not maintaining social distancing. They don't have the right cleaning stop points for people, and they don't have the right processes and procedures, even though they're saying that they do. I mean, businesses, you really have to be making sure that you've got that quality assurance every day, every shift, throughout your quiet and busy periods. As you say, because if it's not a risk of losing custom, it's a risk of losing the license if you are not able to meet these standards.
Absolutely.
Nina, thank you ever so much for joining us today and giving that insight. There was so much information in there for us to take away. But is there a way that we can get in contact with you if we want to explore these informations more detail?
Yes, of course. My website, fairweathersafetyconsulting.com. It has links to helpful sites and other guidance. You can contact me on nina@fairweathersafetyconsulting.com. And by all means, I'll help just to answer any queries or to help you with your risk assessments or training or whatever else it might be. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Ryan.
Nina, thank you very much for joining me today. Well, that should have opened your eyes really around whether you are actually doing enough within your business to maintain these standards and even prevent the risk of damage to your reputation and future operation of your business. So do take note of those and make sure that you've got the processes in place and the support for your staff, as well as the training to maintain these standards and constantly review these. Especially as we go through the next year, there will be standards that will probably change as more information comes to light on COVID-19. Pay close attention to what the UK Hospitality Association and the UK Hotel Housekeepers Association is doing, because they have some really good information and resources available there. And as Nina said, get in contact with her to find out a bit more about how you could actually manage it locally at your business. And this has been Travel Market Life. There's many more episodes as we explore the technology that you can use to meet some of these standards, as well as the ways in which other businesses are identifying a way to get through the crisis and look at new commercial opportunities. That's travelmarket.life. I'll be back with you very soon. I'm Ryan Haynes. Take care. Ciao for now.